All right, welcome back to another episode of the BJLJ Show, another off-season episode. It's been a little bit, but we had to hop back on because a lot of news has happened. Conor, we're going to give the people a little rundown here real quick. I'll talk about, obviously, John Shire on the YouTube channel. That will be plugged into this episode. At the end of this episode will be my interview with John Shire on the podcast. And then the rest of the rundown, Duke made a new hire. Preston Greene. Duke added to the non-conference slate. When I interviewed Shire, I said, you might as well start playing the Boston Celtics. And he almost did. He got the national champs. So the Florida Gators come to Cameron that we'll talk about. And then Conor and I will give you guys our projected starting five as of today. Obviously, that will change as we get more information about some of these guys. And then like to do first off the bench and the 6 through 8 guys on the bench we'll talk about as well. And then we have some Q&As from you guys that we'll end the show with before leading into the interview with John Shires. But first, Conor, welcome back. It was Conor's birthday this week, so everybody wish him a happy birthday in the comment section or on Twitter if you haven't done so. So, Conor, first off, happy belated. I texted you, but happy belated, and let's talk some Duke basketball.
Thanks. Isn't there a Mark Phillips bit where he's parodying LeBron when he's yelling, "I'm 36"?
I don't recall.
One of them?
You might be right, but I cannot.
I know there's one bit, one skit that guy did it put on the internet. I can't remember what age he's yelling though. I think I've kept playing it over in my head, and I'm like, I know I remember the one that he did when KD signed with the Warriors, but LeBron would have been much younger than 36. So I don't know what I'm thinking of where somebody's yelling, "I'm 36," but
I think you're just 36.
All to say, I'm 36.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you're just at the point of 36. You're just like, I swear I remember this, and maybe you did, maybe you didn't. That's 36, though. You start losing your memory at 30, and it just goes downhill at 36.
Man,
I'm 31, so I can make that jab.
I'm out of my Kevin Durant year and into my Sean Taylor rookie. He wore 36 as a rookie, then he switched to 21. So I'm Sean Taylor as a rookie.
Look, I thought those things stopped after the Jordan year at 23, but you know what? We can keep them going in the 30s. 31, I guess I'm Battier. That's the only 31 I know of off the top of my head, but I'll take that. Late and early next year, so that's fine. That works for me.
Oh, I was going to suggest you're going to be NBA Cooper Flag next year.
Oh, yeah, maybe. We'll look.
I mean, that's going to be his number.
That's around the corner. We'll probably have a show for that after the Duke guys get drafted and talk some NBA. But let's talk about Conor. Like I said, I alluded to it in the opening. So Duke hires Preston Greene, who as the new strength and conditioning coach or director of performance coach, Conor, from Clemson. I got a call the other day from Jordan Miller because Preston Greene came from Miami before the stop at Clemson and said that, hey, Shire wanted to reach out to him and see about, what he thought of Preston Greene at his time in Miami. And obviously Jordan Miller said great things about Coach Preston Greene. And so now we see a few days after that Duke hires Preston Greene as the new strength conditioning coach. So big time hire for Duke. If Jordan Miller supports it, I support it.
If Jordan Miller didn't like Preston Greene and then Duke hired him, I guess you could say Duke really doesn't value the opinion of Jordan Miller.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been something if Jordan Miller was like, I don't think much about him. It's like, perfect. You know what? We're going to hire Preston Greene. But
that's okay.
It's a good hire.
It's a little simplistic, but you just think about what Clemson from a strength and conditioning standpoint looked like the last 2 to 3 years. Pretty big and strong and physical, and at least to my knowledge in the games I watched, they didn't appear to wear down. That's player development at Duke is always going to be unique to Duke because of the way they recruit compared to pretty much everybody else in college basketball. So it's not an apples to apples comparison, but it speaks to his expertise that what Clemson has looked like physically the last couple of years has been because of Preston Greene. you don't expect Dame Sarr in a span of 3 to 4 months with Preston to all of a sudden look chiseled and massive and have an NBA ready body already. But you get the sense that this is it's a good hire.
Yeah, it's a good hire, and the key for a strength and conditioning coach, I mean, it says what? Director of performance coach, but I think that's pretty much it.
I had that thought on a drive today. I don't know why we stopped calling them strength and conditioning coaches and needed it's like one of these HR things that only people on the HR side of the business would understand.
Yeah, the strength and conditioning side, I'm going to keep slipping up and call him strength and conditioning coach because I mean that's all I know. But I know.
If you walk up to David Feely and say, "David, are you the strength and conditioning coach?" He's going to say, "Yes." What do you need? He's not going to tell you, "No, my official title is director of sports performance for Duke football."
Yeah. I mean, the key with Preston Greene is that with what he's so good at is building muscle, but also having the durability and the flexibility of keeping the explosiveness. Like it's not a stocky guy. He's not building muscle, and then you're going to lose athleticism off of that. He does a very good job, and he's the difference of players that he's had. Like Trey Mann's a guy I really like for the Hornets. He did really good things with Trey Mann at Florida. Talked about Miller, but you look at that Miami team. I mean, those guys would kill you in different ways with the body builds that they had, and he's just in health. Like that's the main thing is can Duke eliminate finally? This is going to be the first year. Like this is a new year. Will Duke finally not have a foot injury, like just a freak foot injury at a preseason or early in the season? If we don't see a walking boot and from July until January 1st, you might as well put a banner up. I mean, it's just it's been so long since that's happened. So that's the first thing that Preston Greene needs to have happen is no boot for Duke. No boot.
Imagining the internet capabilities of one of those fake banners hanging from cameras.
It's like the Colts banner of like finishing runner up or whatever it was back in the COVID year.
I think Florida State has one for the NCAA tournament that didn't happen in 2020 and the ACC championship that they have but the tournament wasn't played that year. Like that level of self-unawareness to hang a banner for something like that.
Look, I mean, it would be a huge win for Duke, especially with what they have in the non-conference we're going to get into now, Conor. I mean, Duke plays Indiana State, but Indiana State's been a tournament team the last few years. I don't think they were this past year, but they've always been really good. Indiana State in the last handful of years. Texas and Charlotte at West Point. Kansas and Madison Square Garden. Arkansas and Chicago. Florida at home for the SEC ACC Challenge. At Michigan State. Texas Tech and Madison Square Garden. And Michigan and Washington, D.C. Jon Scheyer he believes in strength of schedule. I mean, not only for like analytics, for seeding and stuff, but I truly think he's like, I want my guys to be as ready as possible for March Madness. And I know Duke lost in the Final Four and the way they lost, and people can say like Duke should have won national championship and stuff. I get it, but that team was ready to make that deep run to a Final Four because of the non-conference slate.
Right. Like to echo that. I mean, they might lose to Arizona or Alabama if they don't test themselves to the level that they did. The Auburn game wasn't in their control, and they're in the Champions Classic every year, but they went out and played Kansas in Vegas. They went out and played Arizona at Arizona to complete a home and home, and then played Illinois in the MSG blowout. I can't say enough good things about the way John schedules with the non-conference. I do think there are layers to it, and I think one of the layers is probably some acknowledgement and some realization of where the ACC is right now. And you're not going to have many quad 1 and quad 2 games in the ACC because it's down right now. I don't think it's going to be quite as down as it was last year, but it's not all of a sudden going to pop back up to where it was, where more than half the teams in the league get into the NCAA tournament. Like, I think if you're an ACC fan, you kind of cross your fingers and hope 6 get there this year.
Yeah.
I
think that'll happen, though. I think the ACC will. I think they're going to rebound pretty well. They'll rebound from last year, but I'm curious to see how Jay Lucas does year 1 at Miami.
There's just so many unknowns, especially with I mean, we're gonna talk about how tough Duke's schedule is, but honestly, I don't know much about what Texas has. I expect Kansas to be good. I expect Arkansas to be good because of the coaches. I have no idea what Sean Miller was able to get to Texas in year 1. I'm really curious to dive in probably over the summer or in the fall when football is eating up too much oxygen. But Michigan, they got the Yaxel Landborg guy out of the portal, but they lose Danny Wolf, right? And they lose Vlad Golden.
They get Elliot Cadeau, though. Elliot Cadeau's back against Duke.
I forgot about Elliot Cadeau, but I hope I don't get added by Mama Cadeau for forgetting her son. I can't remember her name. Michelle.
Yeah, Michelle Cadeau. I was going to say, though, too, about the non-conference slate. Like, you're talking about you don't know who's going to be good because who comes and goes with, the portal and stuff. One team in particular, Texas Tech, who I think is going to be good this year, but, I mean, they lost their second best player to NC State.
Yeah, so Duke will still see him.
So, yeah, Duke plays Darren Williams, who left Texas Tech to go to NC State, and Will Wade's done a hell of a job in year 1 of accumulating talent in Raleigh. That just goes to show what I'm saying. But the ACC will bounce back, and I think NC State is going to be one of those teams. Louisville is going to be really good. But, yeah, Duke will play Elliot Cadeau and Washington, D.C. I think Michigan will be pretty good, though, as a whole. Texas will be interesting in Charlotte. At West Point is going to be really cool for the guys. Kansas and Madison Square Garden is going to be good because, look, Kansas, Hunter Dickinson's gone. So
they're finally get out of the Hunter Dickinson shadow.
They'll be top 10. I know they were like preseason number 1 with Hunter Dickinson, but, that doesn't mean anything. He just made his teams worse in his 5 years.
Yep.
And so I think this Kansas team will be legit top 10 throughout the whole season. Arkansas will be good in Chicago. And like I said, Florida, reigning national champs, they're going to be good. They're well coached. He was unbelievable at San Francisco, and now he won a national championship in Florida. So, it's going to be a tough slate for Duke.
Didn't Florida get somebody back from the draft? Was it Condon?
I think is not currently expected to enter the NBA draft this year. He has withdrawn his name 2025 NBA draft. So they have Condon coming back.
That's a good one.
And they God, who'd they get in the portal? Oh, they got the Princeton kid,
Xavier Lee.
Xavier Lee, and I think they got somebody else. Bad podcasting on me. I should have looked it up. That's on me. But I know Florida.
We do have plenty of time to learn this shit.
We do have plenty of time.
It's June 11th.
We just found out about, and with the portal and how college athletics is in the whole, maybe one of these guys just won't show up to campus because they'll enter the portal before fall semester starts. I mean,
that's the thing. That's the crazy thing here is any of these guys that entered the portal, I guess if you've signed, it's a little different, but some of these guys I think can flip their commitment right now. Yeah.
It's a weird time, but what out of those games, Connor, which one are you most intrigued by? Not even just for like talent against talent, but it's like, hey, I like to see this matchup.
I think it's Kansas. Like 2 weeks into the season, Duke will have already been tested a little bit with the Texas game going up to Army. Might not be as much of a test, but it'll be a cool game and it'll be an atmosphere unlike anything Duke will see all year. I say the Kansas game just because it's the other blue blood on the schedule. Maybe Michigan State is a blue blood. I don't know. I think you have to win a championship in a 25-year period to be a blue blood these days. Yes. But Kansas Is John Ofer against Bill Self?
How many times has Duke played Kansas?
I think 2 or 3 times.
Played him every year since Shire's been head coach.
They played last year. They played John's first season. Man, this is really dynamite podcasting.
This is great podcasting.
No, they didn't play Kansas 2 seasons ago. So 0-2 against Bill Self.
This is the year, or this upcoming year will be the year for John Shire to beat them.
He just won a recruiting battle against him, so that's notable.
I was going to say Dame Sarr, who we didn't talk about obviously before last episode because it's been a little over a month, but I was looking up when I asked you about the non-conference schedule, another guy for Florida, because I knew I was forgetting him. Boogie Flan transferred from Arkansas to Florida.
Oh yeah,
so
yeah.
That's the backcourt that they've lost Walter Clayton, but they're going to land, and Elijah Martin, but they rebounded well with getting 2 good guards out of the portal. I said Texas on a show earlier last week because obviously they're in Charlotte and I'm going to go to that game. But without saying Texas and, the uncertainty of Texas, Kansas is a good one. But now it's the Florida game. Like, I know it's recency bias, but I learned a lot, and I think everybody learned a lot when Duke beat Auburn because leading up to that game, it was like, well, Duke's lost to, they beat an underwhelming Arizona team because Arizona ended up going to be unranked shortly after they lost to Duke at home. And then Duke lost to Kentucky and Kansas. So like, oh, well, Duke's 1-2 against good teams. And the one win was against a now unranked Kansas or Arizona team. They beat Auburn. And then people kind of switched the narrative. Again, people that were anti-Duke were, well, Duke plays in the ACC. Point being, you saw them beat the best college basketball team that was Auburn all year until obviously the Final Four. So with that, I'm going to go Florida, reigning national champs, come to Cameron and see what Duke's made up against the reigning national champs. So that's the one that I'm excited for because you can pick any one of these, but that's going to be the one that I choose.
That's going to be an electric atmosphere. I'm going to set my goal now of being home before 5 a.m. because that Auburn game, I was at Cameron until about 3:45, and then it's about an hour back to K Vegas. That was a terrible feeling. Like I burned some midnight oil, but that one was a little too crazy because that game started at like 10 o'clock. It was not played in a tidy 2 hours, and it was just, It felt like I was starting to write my story at 1 a.m.
Maybe you'll get home either sooner or later since the NCAA might switch to quarters. So I don't know if that's good or bad for you.
I don't think they're switching to quarters this year, but they're giving coaches challenges, which, as everybody knows, I'm so staunchly anti-review. I'll compromise with challenges if it speeds things up, and they're taking some things out that can be reviewed. So I said this somewhere else. Like I'm reserving judgment until December. Like I want to see a month of this, maybe get me into the second month of the season, and I'll tell you whether I like the challenge system or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than going to replay 7 times in the last 2 minutes on who the ball was out of bounds on.
The last 2 minutes of a game should not take 30 minutes.
Yeah, and we've said on this podcast before, I'll say it again for new listeners, it's like, hey, when you can't tell who it's off on in real time, that's when you can that's when you can go to review. And even if you blow the call, it's real time. When you go super slow-mo to figure out if it's off of somebody's fingernail, that's not the point of review. So as long as they speed up that process, I'm fine with it. I do like the challenge as well. So maybe we'll get you out of Cameron and get you home sooner rather than later because these games, especially 9 o'clock tips, are unbelievably tough for people like me that have to get up early in the morning and go to work. I want to turn it now, Conor, to projections. This is always the fun. This is the off-season episode, baby. So we're going to give our projected starting 5, and I want you to give me. We'll go starting 5 first, and then 6th, 7th, 8th man after we go back and forth with the starting 5.
All right, I'm going first.
Yep, I'll let you go first.
We might have the same starting 5. I hope we don't, but we might.
Go.
I went Caleb Foster, Isaiah Evans, Dame Sarr, Cam Boozer, Malik Brown.
You are on this train of Malik Brown starting at the 5 position. You have been.
I don't
No,
know why that's a controversial or out on a limb take.
I guess it's not. I guess it's just I have just seen it penciled in so much of Pat being the starter.
It does feel like I'm a little out on a limb because like everybody's on the Pat Gongba blow up train, and I'm sitting here like Malik Brown was the best defensive player on the team when he was healthy.
Agreed,
and
we agree with that.
If he's on the same page as the coaching staff with scoring more and looking to be more of an offensive threat, I think he's a much better player than Pat will be in year 2.
That's fair. Look, I'm not criticizing you. It just shocked me because I keep forgetting that you're so pro Malik Brown. But I swiper keeps swiping, so like I love Malik Brown. I like that. That is interesting. But I'll go with my starting 5, and then we'll go bench, and we'll get back to this because it's going to be brought up. So I have Caleb Foster. I have Sarr at the 2, and then I have Isaiah at the 3. But, it's position.
Yeah, I mean, those are the most interchangeable pieces on Duke's team.
Right, but I will get into that, why I have them at 2 and 3. And then Cam Boozer, Pat Gongba. First off the bench is Malik Brown, 6-man, because I think regardless, whoever's starting at the 5, they're going to play like 22 minutes and 18 minutes. Like, I think it's just going to be interchangeable to where you start one, the other's going to play basically the same amount of minutes. Yeah. So that's where I'm going with Malik Brown. That's the 6th man. But if you want to talk about a 6th man that's like the scorer that's coming off the bench, I'm going to go Haminia first, and then I have Darren Harris right after him. So I have basically 6-man Malik Brown, 7th Haminia, 8th Darren Harris. But that's not a slap in the face of Darren Harris. It's just like, hey, let's get you going early in the season. No pressure off the bench. And then Caden Boozer will be like the 9th guy. And the reason I have him that deep down or far down is because you slide Sarr from the 2 to the 1 when you sub out Foster, who would be the first sub off the bench or the first sub as a guard to come off the floor. Put Sarr at the 1, bring in Haminia at the 2, Isaiah at the 3, and then Harris comes in for Isaiah. And then Caden will eventually come in for Sarr at point.
Man, I need to watch your film breakdown of Dame Sarr because I had not realized he could be playing point minutes.
I compared him to SGA. And not MVP SGA. Not MVP SGA.
Game 3's on right now.
The comparison is Kentucky SGA because Kentucky SGA was 6'6", 180. Sarr is 6'6", 180. And Sarr had the ball in his hands as not technically a point guard, but a primary ball handler in the half-court offense when he plays for FC Barcelona. So, therefore, I think his ball handling will improve enough to where he can be a point type of guy for Duke. Because let's face it, I mean, Caleb Foster is not really a point guard. Tyrese Proctor was never really a point guard. They're scoring guards that ran some point.
Yeah, I've tried to put this into words, probably haven't done it very well. I tend to think, especially the way that Duke is going to run offense, like we saw with Con Knipple and Cooper Flagg played as much point guard as Sion James and Tyrese Proctor did last year. If you define point guard as the guy who initiates and is the ball handler and pick and rolls and pick and pops.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the usage rate last year with Proctor. It was way down.
He's a catch and shoot guy.
Correct.
Yeah. So there's a part of me that thinks it's just you have to have a collective amount of ball handling skill. You have to almost think of it as a video game with the sliders, and you have to have a collective number of skill ball handling wise on the court at the same time. You don't just have to have one guy that's designated to bring the ball up the court every single possession like you do in rec ball or high school games. Like that way of thinking it at most places, it seems like it is kind of fading out of the way that it's taught. My bench, we're very different on the benches.
That's fine.
I went Caden Boozer, Darren Harris, Pat Gongba. I didn't order them in any way. So I'll say, I mean, I'm right there with you with thinking that whichever center plays 21 minutes, the other one's going to play 19.
Yeah.
I think in a perfect world, Duke adds a third center and they're able to play some Malik Brown 4 minutes, but you can only, this is the catch-22 of what John is going to deal with roster building when he brings in freshman classes with 5 guys or brings back 2 major contributors at the 5 position. You're not going to be able to go out and get a transfer portal center who's going to agree to, yeah, maybe I'll play 8 minutes against Indiana State. Maybe I'll have a couple DNPs early in the ACC schedule. Maybe if Malik Brown's shoulder pops out again, I'll have a role. But that type of player who can contribute at Duke is just not available. And
Yeah,
that's why you bring in Ife Ugochukwu.
That's what we talked about last episode. I was like, hey, outside the box thinking, you bring Sean Stewart back to play 8 minutes because, like, the premium thing in the portal is size. That's why you see big guys who are not as skilled get such like a lot of money to go elsewhere. I mean, Vassar is getting like $2.5 million at UNC, and is he worth that? Probably not. But his size is like, his skill set is probably like 1.5, but he's a massive big man that's going to be a 5 in the ACC. So you add even more money to that, and so he's getting 2.5, and that's just Duke. Duke doesn't have that luxury to be like, hey, yes, we are Duke, but here's 8 minutes for you. I know you want to be a guy, but here's 8 minutes. Would you be interested? It's like, no, thank you. So, and that's where it's a little worrisome at the third center position because Duke doesn't have one. Whereas if they didn't have one last year, Duke's Sweet 16 maybe, where Duke doesn't have Pat Gongba, and Malik Brown goes down with a shoulder injury. So now you're like, Cooper Flagg, can you play some 5 just a little bit? Like, that is where that's what could have happened.
Well, we saw it. We saw what that was last year in January. It was put Mason Gillis in there so that Cooper Flagg doesn't have to bang up against somebody's 7 foot, 260 pounder.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Totally forgot about Mason Gillis running some 5 there a little bit. But that's what made Duke, what could make a team vulnerable is injuries to where, hey, next man up mentality until you run out of men and you're looking at the bench. You're like, Jack Scott, can you come run some stretch 4 for us?
Yeah. Oh boy. We're not too different on the benches. You had Hemenia in there.
Yeah, you don't have Hemenia in there at all.
You had Hemenia in there. I had Caden Boozer in there. I like Caden Boozer as a playmaker. I know his jumper isn't there yet, but I do like him as a playmaker, and I like him as a winner. That seems so K-ish and cliche-ish to say, but him and his brother did have one of the most accomplished high school careers ever with the state championships and the Peach Jam championships, and just they won at every level. And I think there's a lot of value in that.
There's a lot of value in recruiting a winner. That is something that does not need to go unsaid. Like, that is a trait. I mean, it's a quality that you need to have in players, that you would love to have in a player. And so him being a winner with his brother coming to Duke, that means something. And so Caden, like I said, I had him like the 9th guy, but not in a bad way. That's more of like, I'm projecting him as of today in June to be like a 12-minute per game guy right now. But can I see him playing 18? Sure. But I just got to see it first. I can't just throw it out there in this hypothetical. Right. So I do want to we'll close up this part of the show, Conor, with Twitter Q&As. I got a couple right here. Reg asked us, what improvements are you looking forward to seeing from each returning player? I'll say a player, and then I'll let you go to returning player. I'll go with Caleb Foster first. And I think with him, his improvement is being more consistent on the offensive end. We know what he can be defensively. That's what got him his playing time back, was how just disruptive he was against RJ Davis, what he was against Houston in the Final Four. He was unbelievable. Like, Houston killed Duke on the glass. Here comes Caleb Foster off the bench. They got no offensive rebounds every stint that he played in the Final Four. The problem, though, was he was like 0 of 5 from the field against Houston. And so that's the area of the game that he just needs to be consistent about. I think he will be. So Caleb Foster, I got to say, him scoring.
All right, I'll take Isaiah Evans, and I want to see him be more versatile on the offensive end. It can't just be launching threes the second the ball hits his hand. He's got to put the ball on the ground. He's got to keep defenses honest as a driver, and that's going to give him more space to shoot and hit those en fuego moments where he reels off 5 of them in a 3-minute span and that kind of thing. So I want to see, I guess the kids these days would say that he needs to show me more of his bag.
Oh, my.
I sound like the oldest 36-year-old white man when I said that.
You sound like a 36-year-old man. How do you do, fellow kids?
Awesome. Yeah, I was cracking people up at baseball this weekend, telling them that, hey, Murray State, they're really putting on a laser show.
Oh my God. We're going to get banned from the internet.
But I just want to see a little more versatility out of Isaiah. And I think that kind of, it might be too obvious, but that is the thing. And hell, I could say his defense, but he impressed me throughout the season with how much he improved on that end. That's where I would go with the offensive versatility.
I'll go Pat Gongba, and I'll leave you Malik Brown. Pat Gongba, just defense versatility. You just said offense versatility for Isaiah. Pat showed that he could be a shot blocker around the rim, but could he be a guy that, hard hedges and recovers on a ball screen action? Like, can he be quicker on his feet? Obviously, this past year, it's tough to really grade it because he did have the foot injury that was supposed to keep him out all year to rehab. So there's no telling if he was, that was affecting him or if he just had slow foot speed or a mix of both. But year 2, Pat, going to be a little quicker on the defensive end and cause disruptiveness. I'm not expecting him to be Kamamalawatch because they don't grow on trees where you have a 7-footer that can harass a point guard or
be
block
a big-ass tree.
Yeah, or be a block a Caleb Love 3-point attempt around the top of the key. Like, it doesn't grow on trees. And so can just Pat show, more defensive versatility? That'd be a huge step for him.
Yeah. Malik Brown definitely does not need to show more defensive versatility. He's got to be more aggressive offensively. Like, he's got to look to score. Just keep playing the 20-second clip from Duke's in-house production of John Shire telling him in a practice, just shoot 2 of those corner threes, just 2 of them today. And he shoots them and makes them. And it's like, look, guy, you can shoot. I know, everybody here knows what you prefer to do and how you prefer to impact games. But that was on a team with some bona fide scorers. I don't think this team has quite as much of an offensive punch. So I think you need to see some improvements in that department, and you need to see Malik look for his shot a little bit more. And I think that's coming. Yeah.
And I want to go to Darren Harris, Connor, and then I'll let you have Cam Sheffield. I'm just kidding. I'll close with Darren Harris. Darren is, look, just let the game come to you. Just, your freshman year sped up because you're a freshman. This is ACC basketball. Can he play at his own pace that he was so good at in high school and that he showed? I think he will be. I think that's an improvement of his game that I'm most excited about is Darren Harris showing the offensive artillery that he has of a 3-point shooter. The mid-range is there, the dribble pull up and finesse around the rim. So year 2, Darren Harris, with that, I think he's going to be a contributor for Duke. I know I had him, the 3rd off the bench for Duke, or 2nd? Yeah, 3rd. Malik Brown, Haminia, and Darren Harris. But I think Darren Harris is a guy that you buy the stock now, and you can see that thing rise. Just because I have him the 8th guy on the team as of June, whatever this is, 11th or June 11th, doesn't mean by, December 15th, he's not starting. So I think Darren Harris is a guy that I have a lot of faith in, even though he's a question mark.
count me as a huge Darren Harris believer. I do think he can have a breakout season. I don't like when we agree on things because that makes for poor TV/radio or whatever this is.
I do think Darren Harris is going to be like, I think Caleb Foster is the popular choice for like Duke fans who are like has the most support of the fan base that I've seen on social media of like belief in him this upcoming year, and rightfully so going to year 3. But Darren Harris is going to be up there too of the fans of like, you know what, I really believe in this kid. And so I think you and I both have Darren Harris stock, and so it's going to be exciting to see where it goes.
Yeah.
So next question, Connor, is Ant for MVP asks us most underrated player on the team this year. We both are just talking about Darren Harris. Let's go outside of Darren Harris. Go outside of Darren Harris.
I feel like we just gave it away.
I will go. I guess you know what? This would be my most underrated player because I wouldn't say Darren Harris is my most underrated. He's the one that like I am pulling for the most. I would say, I mean, me having Nick Amenia as the first guard off the bench, but I'm going to go Dame Sarr because I think people, I mean, I surprised you with saying he should be a ball handler, or I project him to be a ball handler for Duke in the half court. I think Dame Sarr is a guy that just his usage rate will surprise a lot of people. And so that's like the underrated aspect of his game is how much Duke might lean on him at times because of what he can bring to the table offensively and what he does defensively. I mean, he is long and lanky. He still needs to get some strength. That's what the new strength and conditioning coach is for, or as we should say, director of a performance coach. So I would say Dame Sarr. People know I'm high on Dame Sarr, but with that, I still think he's the most underrated because I feel like I might be on an island like you are with Malik Brown starting at the 5. I'm like, Dame Sarr is going to be some type of ball handler for Duke.
I don't want to zig. I think the most underrated player on this team is going to be Darren Harris.
You piss me off, dude. I give you one job. No, I'm just kidding.
I will not yield on this.
Yeah. No, that's – look, we just
change up the order of the questions if you knew that we were going to talk about Darren Harris for 3 minutes and then we were going to have a question that was obviously our answer was going to be the same in Darren Harris.
Honestly, I'm just reading from top to bottom right now. And that was literally like the next question that I read. And honestly, it fed into our answer leaked into the second question. I think that's actually good podcasting because it's that you keep talking about your boy Darren Harris. House of Duke Highlights asked, in spirit of Shire asking Brads to critique the offense and defense, he would like to know what I would think or what I would do to critique Duke's offense and defense. And so I would just say offensively, you know, it's going to be Captain Obvious, but it's just sometimes what got Duke in trouble was a little isolation you saw with Cooper Flagg, not even down the stretch. Those were good looks. I will live with all the shots that he missed down the stretch that, you know, Duke lost the game because he slipped. He missed the shot against Houston short. Live with those percentages. It's the maybe 3 in a row possessions with like the 8-minute mark in the second half to like the 5.5-minute mark where you're like, you know what? Probably just need to keep being fluid and go through like a Con Knipple or somebody else. And so, you know, just the periodic ISO ball, I thought would get Duke in trouble at times. But I say all that, Duke still had the number 1 or number 2 Ken Palm offense in the country. And so going into March Madness, and then defensively, I really have no complaints. The only thing is rebounding. That's what lost Duke the game against Houston was all 5 guys didn't crash. And Duke kind of not got lazy, but there are times where Duke had lapses in games where they gave up periods of offensive rebounds and second chance points. And so I think this upcoming team, though, Connor, is better suited to not give up those type of rebounds because Cam Boozer is a legit solid 4, and then Gongba has strong hands. He's a good rebounder. Malik Brown's pretty savvy around there. And then Caleb Foster, like I said, his rebounding ability with the minutes that he's going to have, the minutes increase, he's going to be crashing the glass. So I think Duke's defense rebounding will be better this season than this previous year. So, yeah, stagnant ISO ball offensively, lack of defense rebounding at times defensively.
Yeah, to the ISO part, as I told you I would say in the pregame when this came up, I would call a shitload of ISOs if I had a generational talent on my team. If I was John, like that just to me, that was the one thing we probably hit on it half a dozen times during the season, but I'd run my team through a guy who is the hands down number one pick, is going to be a franchise changer when he enters the NBA. Played over the summer and was scoring as a 17-year-old against a team that won a gold medal. I mean, it's almost coaching neglect if you don't run ISOs through that type of guy. Maybe they did it a little too often. I might give you that ground, but man, it always struck me throughout the season when people would say, "Well, John Shire only has one play and it's Cooper ISO." I'm like,
yeah,
no shit.
Yeah, it's Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. What are you going to do? Pass it to Will. That's a pretty good option. He's going to score.
We don't need to overthink this. He's the best player in college basketball. Of course he's going to get ISOs.
He quite literally was the leader in every statistical category for a 35-win team. So, he was the best player on the floor. But to my point was, just sometimes it was the shots were not good looks for what Coach Shire wants to run or have, as we talked about in the interview. That is going to come up after this. So if you haven't listened to the interview, it's right here. If you have listened to the interview and you like to listen again, it's also right here. But we thank you guys for listening to the Big J Little J show. And now this is my interview with Coach John Shire.